voter mobilization campaign targeting youth nationally to sensitize them on the need to promote to vote for the presidential and governors, and indeed at the post with the youth agenda in mind. Dubbed Making the Youth Factor Count in the 2017 elections, the campaign will see all presidential and gubernatorial aspirants presented with sets of questionnaires that will then be expected to fill in and submit back to the organization. And then this will be used to address various youth issues, including, of course, reducing unemployment, youth institutional and policy issues, affirmative action mechanisms, skills development, and things like that. The reason for doing this, well, to be able to bring this into the spotlight. Just what are various candidates doing to be able to address issues such as this? Well, to answer some of the questions that we have, mainly because the question has been, are the youth being able, well, to be able to ask these questions themselves when it comes to the political equation today? In studio with me currently, Javans Bigambo. He is from the Youth Agenda. Karibu sana.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, so of course, a long list of questions first, a long list of issues that politicians need to be tackling, but the issue maybe is on the other foot, the fact that not a lot of youth in Kenya today are looking at politics from a perspective where they need to ask themselves, what is the need for them, other than the short-term view?
Well, the business of politics itself is very serious business.
Yes.
But the most tragic thing is that across the political landscape in this country, the youth have not cast their eyes on the seriousness of the politics of business and the business of politics, to the extent that they must find themselves at the center of it and not just ask questions from the periphery, but see how they can be players, critical players or movers of the political agenda.
Yes.
And of course, it would be unfortunate, or it would be missing the point if we look at the blanket statement of the word youth. Because when it comes to the involvement into politics, then the youth also are segmented. Yes, we have got the youth who are educated, very exposed, the elite youth. We have got those who are not so well educated, but they are movers and shakers within the business world. And then there are those who are semi-literate in the villages, etc., who form the majority of the constituency that the youth are. And those who, for the most part, do not get in to be critical players or even help in decision-making processes within the political spectrum, but they sit at the fringes merely to be invited to political engagements by politicians, and most of the time they are converted into town criers and youth wingers and nothing significant.
Now, part of the challenge has been that the youth are actually the largest demographic when it comes to voting. If you look at the population statistics, the youth comprise the largest segment. So how come they're not literally flexing their muscle? Why are they so disengaged?
Actually, a report released last year, 2016, indicated that of the population of Kenya, 80% are youth of various ages.
Yes.
And one wonders then, as you've asked, that how come they are far removed from the engagement of political processes, decision-making, policy, etc. And the fact here is that the youth themselves have not invited themselves to be at the center by way of, one, commencing reflections on how they can be a critical cog in the wheel of political progress and development in our country. And the other thing is that most of the time they want to consider politics a very expensive thing that they only get in when they have amassed a fairly amount of money so that they can become players. But the youth in Kenya must realize this hard fact, in Kenya, in Africa, etc., that unless the youth rise in sufficient numbers to move the center, then the center cannot move the youth agenda. So they must go to the middle of it. And this involves, or this needs, one, they need to start engaging in political strata at various levels. The calibration of engagement in politics is something that they need to focus on. One, they must not wait until governments are formed at the county level or national level for them to engage. The best time to engage is when nobody expects you to engage.
Yes.
One, trying to inform discourse or discussions or debates way before even the political season. But when the political season comes, it's important for the youth also to move in and be part of the framers.
Yes.
One, for example, of political manifestos, the anticipated policies to be embraced when a county government is in power, or when the national government is in power through a certain political party. And much more than that, it is important for the youth also to realize that it's not when it comes to engaging in politics, not just a question of looking at the quick wins or the business aspect of it,
yes,
of, say, merchandise provision in our political spaces,
or even the
shirts, etc.,
yes,
and handouts only, and then the entertainment part. Because
yes,
most of the time, when somebody wants to look at the agenda of the youth,
that is where they go.
They are forgiven, and they must not be forgiven moving forward to consider the youth interests, one, merely on a question of entertainment.
In fact, just to stop you right there, if you simply look at the AGPO agenda, the affirmative action that the government has tried
Yes.
to do in terms of getting the youth to take up tenders and that sort of thing, that is actually the kind of tenders that have been reserved for them, what you just mentioned.
But what is interesting, even when you look at the AGPO framework itself,
Yes.
while it's a very good platform, very good instrument, facility for the progress of the youth,
Yes.
but what kind of youth have benefited from that facility, say, in the past period, since its initiation? That is one. Secondly, you realize that most youth across this country took advantage of that AGPO,
Yes.
applied for various tenders across, whether it's the county level or the national, government level, offered various services
Yes.
to government. To this day, more than 90% of youth have not been paid
Yes.
by the county governments or by the national government.
Well, indeed, pertinent questions right there. Of course, more still to come, especially the fact that even away from what we're saying, about 84% of our economy is agriculture. A lot of the youth don't want to go into agriculture because of the nature. It has so far been back-breaking work. Where is the value addition perspective in this politics? Where are the policies towards creating infrastructure and enabling environment to be able to, enable the youth take up these opportunities? I want you to hold that thought. We want to go on a short break, but on the other side of that break, we'll be dealing with matters agriculture and indeed try to chart a way forward so that the youth can be able to start to engage from this point onward and say that this is what our aspect in this election is.
Right.
Well, we will be back in just a few short minutes. Do stay with us here on KTN Business. Today, my name is Peter Wakaba.